welcome back. We are at SFMA 2022. Third time saying that, and it's still going to get some time getting used to.
Yeah.
I'm Meg Kruger, the content specialist with Pioneer, and I am joined with Pete Thibeault and Rick Perruzzi. You guys have been great support system of this series from the beginning, so I'll start off by thanking you for that, and then for joining us here today, and then I'll let you give your official titles so I don't butcher anything. Go ahead, Pete. I'll let you start.
I'm Peter Thibeault. I'm at the Noble and Greenough School in Dedham, Massachusetts. I've been there a little over 20 years. I'm also a certified sports field manager with the SFMA. And thanks for having me.
Of course.
Yeah, Rick Perruzzi, City of South Portland, Maine, Parks and Recreation Department. I'm the manager of outdoor athletic facilities for the city, which includes not only our recreational complex, but our school athletic fields and our hard courts, as well as our city's golf course, 9-hole golf course. Been there just over 20 years, and I'm a certified sports field manager as well. So thanks for having us.
Of course. And today we're going to be talking about, I know nothing is black and white when it comes to sports turf. So there's not a perfect template that anybody can follow. But, if somebody's starting out or somebody's at their wit's end about, planning something that they could possibly try and replicate in the sense of a month-to-month plan or season-to-season, however we frame it, for, really planning to make sure that this cultural best practice is getting done so that you're ready for the one that you need to do in the fall. Do you guys follow anything like that or something that just happens naturally? And, you're both located in the New England area, so I'm sure that plays a role in it as well. But if you want to take that question to start, just, anything that you're doing right now that kind of follows that template.
So, as I said earlier, I'm fortunate enough to be in the same facility for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
So things right now are almost automatic. But getting back to the original question, unlike Rick, who manages a much bigger spectrum, I work for just a school.
Mm-hmm.
So we manage a smaller amount of events and things. So for the school, the way that their calendar year works, in March, we start up all the spring sports, and we kind of have to look at all their calendar schedules as far as all the way the teams play. And we try to get through that as best we can.
Mm-hmm.
I guess as far as trying to make a planning point, we're looking at their schedules so that we can plan for seeding,
Yep.
fertilization, any sort of soil compaction. So really, it may change every year. What we do this year may be different than next year based off of their calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And then right from spring sports, I roll into a summer program. We host a summer camp. We have anywhere from 800 to 1,200 little kids running all over the place.
Fun.
So management becomes
Natural
very difficult.
aeration there.
It becomes very difficult because they preoccupy the place. We almost turn
Yep.
into a golf course.
Yep.
They start at 9 and they take over. So management through the summer is more survival.
Mm-hmm.
But bringing that up, we get a little bit of break in between the fall sports, so we try and cram all the other processes before
Yep.
we start our fall sports. And like I said earlier, we pretty much follow the sports calendars.
Okay.
So we try to work within their calendar to give them the best product.
Yep.
And then, of course, once December hits, we pull the plug and we all go inside and hide for the winter.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Rick, when you and I first connected, we connected over top dressing. And that was really my first introduction to, that cultural practice. And I was just amazed that, I thought I was catching you at the right time. Like, oh, this is the time that people would be doing this. And you're like, well, all of this needs to be done before you even get to the top dressing component. So, how do you really train staff to understand that, you might think that you need to be doing this, but you needed to be prepared a long time ago with all these other best practices?
Yeah, I mean, kind of along the same lines of what Pete said. Being at the same facility. I mean, I've been at the same facility since the day it opened. The first shovel went in the ground, and kind of one of the bad habits, and Pete alluded to this, was it's robotic.
Mm-hmm.
We know what's coming down the road. We're getting prepared for it. our crews, if there's any, holdover retainable employees, they know what's coming down, and it kind of becomes just an accepted form, practice of how we go out and do our jobs each and every day. It wasn't until probably 4 or 5 years ago when my current director came to me and said, "You have a sports turf management plan."
Mm-hmm.
And I go, "In writing?" He goes, "Yeah." And I go, "No." He goes, "I'd like you to formulate one." And as I went through it, I said, "Why didn't I do this long ago?" And I knew of people having these things. And it's not something that I'm going to sit here and tell any new employee or anybody who's wanting to get in the industry that you have to follow it step by step.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of an outline of
Mm-hmm.
things to consider, specific to your facility. I mean, my details are going to be different than Pete's details in terms of what he's getting ready for. But yeah, I mean, it's something that, God forbid if I leave tomorrow, I can at least hand it to my supervisors above me and say, give this to this person here outside of the basic agronomics and cultural practices that need to be done.
It's a great point.
They have an idea of what events are going to be happening, what just timelines of everything. And every year I go through it and I try to update and remove some items that may not be relative anymore. But yeah, I mean, for me, this year will be the first year in a long time that I have some really new employees coming in.
Okay.
Hopefully, I am very lucky to have a turf guy who has a formal 4-year degree, and he does all my agronomics for me.
Yeah.
And him and I talk regularly, and he's got it upstairs in his head of the schedule that he wants, but it does follow suit with what I've got laid out in that management plan.
Yeah. And what a great point in just the sense of look at the last 2 years. Like you mentioned, if I'm not there tomorrow, and that was the fact for you guys, it was like the school shut down, and then it was like you guys could only come in to mow, and you weren't allowed on the facility at the same time. And it's like to kind of have that plan that you guys can all go back and reference. And okay, where are we at today? Since we're not getting to do those team meetings in the morning or whatever that looked like 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was a lot different 2 years ago, especially where there was nobody there. It was everything we always talk about, how this place would be so great if we didn't have the kids running around. But now we're happy to have everybody back around, and it gave me an opportunity to really dial in on the program because that's really all I had. And it, like Rick had said, it's really started to iron out to everyone else so that if I wasn't there, we have it written down. I don't have a step-by-step plan like he had talked about.
He's giving you some ideas
I
there.
may actually do that because really for me, like I said, it's become automatic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other part of that is also it's the liability associated with the society we live in nowadays.
Yep.
The more you can have in writing, the better the paper trail, even though, still electronic form, pardon the pun, but it kind of covers yourself in regards to, if God forbid, if a kid gets hurt, you can say, well, did you aerate? At least you have that document to show that you are aerating on a somewhat regular basis. Now, there are various factors that go into when we don't aerate. And then we would have to specify, if we didn't. But, the biggest thing I could tell anybody who's getting into the industry, besides having something to kind of lean on, if you think you're going to follow a schedule, you better go find another profession. Because if you can't switch gears in this industry, whether it's schedule related, whether it's a pandemic related, weather related, you can't live by a clipboard, unfortunately. I've seen some people try to do it. It's very, very difficult. And it's just not something that I would recommend to anybody.
Mm-hmm. And as far as like data points go, whether you're using them to kind of justify your bottom line or you're using them to plan for the future, or it's justifying the kind of staff you need, are you guys collecting any data points on a seasonal or yearly basis to kind of support that planning or that that bottom line support?
I guess I can answer this. So, yeah, I mean, we do have a scheduling software, but it has a lot of different options that we can look at. I can look at hours of usage. I can track how much monies we're bringing in. I can figure out, who's school usage, who's rec usage, adult league usage. So I can break those components out. And I haven't used it yet, but in certain situations when you need to play politics, you can put that down on the table
Yep.
and say, you guys are 40% of our user groups, and you're giving us no money.
Yep.
So, there are, that's kind of one of those back pocket things, but it does enable us to paint a picture of actually who's using our facility in our fields.
Of course.
And, at the golf course, it's a little different. We're just kind of keeping track of numbers in terms of who's playing golf. But, even something as basic as what I just previously described is sometimes enough just to be able to paint a picture and justifying why you need what you need for funding.
Yep.
And employees.
Well, and the last thing you want is for someone to, ask you a question and you look unprepared. So even if it's something that helps secure that spot at the table for sports managers, just to.
What we do to try and get that spot at the table is on a weekly, I'll go around and we'll walk the fields and we'll make notes on traffic patterns, where, when we were fertilizing, how much we water, how frequently we mow. And then we'll have that conversation with the athletic department. And that's where we're lucky because everything's kind of in-house. It's a good relationship that we have with everybody involved. So when things do tend to start to get to be overused or there's something that came up, we can shift gears pretty easily. And I'm pretty lucky in that world, I think.
Well, and that leads to a great point is communication across the board as far as communicating to the user groups, communicating to the coaches, to whether it's an athletic director or, higher ups. What have you guys really found to be, effective in the form of making sure that's an open line of trust and communication?
So for us, coaching kind of changes sometimes from year to year. And what the athletic department has done for us is they've given us an opportunity to meet with the coaches at the beginning of their season, because the one thing that I've learned is that during a practice or during a game is the wrong time to have that conversation.
That's a great
so
point.
we try to lead off, and that way it's kind of a work in progress through the season. And for us, it seems to work a lot better because it's a good conversation to start the conversation. And then it's just like I said, we're all on the same team. Everybody wants to have a great facility and a nice, safe surface. So they're willing to make those changes. And the communication, it can't be enough sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah, communication, we're I work for the municipality, but I deal, a lot with the school department or the athletic office. I have a very good relationship with our current athletic director. We went to school together. But even said that, prior administrations, it's constant contact. And there's going to be, peaks and valleys in that relationship. It's, for me, probably not so much for Pete, but where I'm dealing with multiple user groups at all different levels and outside of the school, the school one is more the one where I really try to drive home to the athletic director, have your coaches go through them. And it's not that I'm not face-to-face with the coaches, because I can't have all this bombardment of email communication or phone calls. That's not to say that doesn't happen, because obviously I want to have these relationships with these coaches and make them understand what it is that we do on a daily basis, and that they're part of the process. I think coaches lose that sometimes, and where coaches are creatures of habit. If there's a white line, they're going to run on that white line. To get them to move a foot either side can save us, say, for instance, paint. Saves us a lot of paint because we're not painting 3 times a week. So it's getting them to buy into the process, make them feel vested, and just have them appreciate what it is that we're doing and that we are there for them. We're in the customer service industry. And, as field managers, we have to understand that as well. So, communication is good. To Pete's point, I'm always, out there checking, especially with the varsity coaches, to make sure everything's good, especially during the preseason, make sure they get everything they need, field's acceptable, any concerns. And then from there, you're always going to have the squawk or two. And it's like, I call the athletic director, I say, they got to go through you. I got to keep that communication streamlined so things aren't getting lost in translation if it ends up circling.
It's a very good point. That's a very good point, Rick.
And Pete, I know that you have your sports turf rules for like coaches and players to kind of follow, and just to get on that same page at the start of every season, where it's like, we're not going to run the same drill over and over in this one spot. But I know that, like, even like you said, just a simple "let's move over 5 feet" can be a challenge when there are so many different things going on, and you want to make sure that that communication is clear and concise. So
Yeah, and even to bring that up, the sports field side of it, they've actually started to use that for like the dorm people. So they got like a little rules for that.
I love
and
that.
and it's kind of grown.
Does
because
it have
they've
your
seen-
picture on it? Because that's the only way I would follow it.
Thanks,
Like
Meg.
you, like you give it a thumbs up or something.
But they've done it in other ways, and sometimes when you read something, it's kind of hits home more than just
Yeah.
being spoken.
Definitely.
So I created that a long time ago, and we've had some good fun with it, and it's an easy way to communicate with the coaches.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's
it's
great
perfect
too.
because it keeps, especially with the kids, it keeps them vested in their facility, in their
Yeah.
field. So I mean, I think something like that is perfect. I mean, you have to get the kids to buy in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even I remember talking to a high school shortstop, asking him how the infield was playing. He looked at me like I had three heads.
Yep.
And I'm like, give me the feedback. I want it. I'm asking a 16, 17-year-old to give me information.
Yeah.
So, once you start to train them, it filters down as the kids come up through the system. And, that's where the communication starts at the grassroots level.
Yep, and empowering them to take pride in
That's
what
key,
they get
yeah.
to play in.
Empowerment.
That's awesome.
That
Well, what have you guys really seen here at SFMA 2022 that has you really hopeful for the future?
We're back.
Yep.
Yeah,
As
it's
simple as
amazing
that.
than
That's
that.
awesome.
It's amazing.
We're back.
Definitely. Well, and thank you guys again. Like I said, you were some of the first two people to join me via Zoom. The fact that we get to be here together today, it's very
awesome.
exciting, and I appreciate both of you guys joining me today.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you.